future trends, deep insights, industry leaders. This is the iGaming Next podcast with your host, Pierre Lindh.
This podcast is brought to you by Pragmatic Solutions, the leading iGaming PAM platform with a modular approach, including many benefits like a fast, secure, and scalable API-based platform, integrated with all major third-party products and services. Make sure you head over to Pragmatic Solutions and join our smart thinking.
Robbi, you are currently one of the most talked about poker players in the world.
Right.
Can you talk about, can you introduce the story to us, how this madness started?
Yeah, this madness. I mean, just to put it lightly. I had been playing poker, as I mentioned to you, since really competitively we started in 2021 when I came to the World Series of Poker. Didn't play a lot of the tournaments there, but it was enough for me to understand that there was some level of interest that I wanted to keep this game going outside of the house. And I also was, again, at the right time in my career to potentially take it more seriously. So I told myself, for the next World Series of Poker, I was going to be more prepared. Now, the difference between cash and tournament play, as I had been mentioning to you, is vast. Cash, higher risk; tournament, more strategy. So for me, I needed to hire the individuals that were very well versed in the proper strategy, that had high levels of success, that had taken a very professional poker career and turned it into a coaching career. And so I picked two of the top coaches, one of them being Faraz Shaka and Steve Blay from advancedpokertraining.com, and then there's Jaka Coaching too. But I wanted to kind of do a one-on-one basis with both of them, primarily because I was trying to accelerate my learning process faster than anyone else's. And there is a level of discipline that comes into the group settings, but I just wanted to get it done one-on-one and practice as much as often, and then join some of the group sessions as well. But tournament strategy is very different, and I do play my tournament game very differently.
Okay.
So there's, again, the GTO that's implemented,
Yes.
And in the cash world, there's high risk and high reward, instant
Yes.
reward.
And
In the
it's fun.
tournament games, there's only, and I've always said, there's, to those that are like, oh, I don't know why you play tournaments. I mean, cash games are so much more fun, the instant gratification. Well, the grind of a tournament is really exciting when you get a deep run. When you're like even if it's like the top, 100, and you're like, oh my gosh, it's already down to 100.
But I feel that you always, at the end of the day, you pretty much always get disappointed, because even in a field of 1,000 players, and you finish third, you're like, God damn it,
I could have been two or one.
I could have been first.
And then you know what happens when you're first, though?
Psychologically, it's so much difficult.
What happens when you're first, and I've even experienced this in my career, because we have award
Yeah.
ceremonies where I often won first and second multiple years, is when you're one, you start to think there's nowhere to go but down. So there's two sides to that story. You almost don't know what to do with yourself when you've already hit the top pinnacle. Not the pinnacle of your success. You can keep being number one, Tom Brady wants to keep doing. And that's just an addiction to constantly winning.
Especially
but there
now
are those.
after the recent FTX scandal. He got to keep playing until it's 50.
Now he's got to make up for that massive loss and maybe not take major risks in his life. Right,
exactly.
So,
play tournament.
No, there's that addiction to winning that also happens, but there's also a loss to winning where you're like, well, I've gotten here, now what? So if you always allow yourself the opportunity to keep growing, it is a little bit more exciting than trying to figure out what to do once you've already hit the pinnacle of your of what where people consider you to be one of the top in the game. And I've heard that from the pros too, that have reached that level of success. You often see them kind of digressing into this darkness and depression of, now what am I going to do, and how am I going to keep up my name? You know?
Exactly. I mean, the psychology of a poker player is very difficult, because to stay on top in a game that is evolving so much all the time, and obviously the GTO strategy is just to keep that information in your head takes so much energy.
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah. It's like the world of solvers. Like when the solver world kind of came to light over the last like 6 years, there were those that wanted to incorporate it, and it was like the young poker pros that were like online, these online millionaires like making tons of money at the time. This is probably prior to Black Friday happening in the U.S. The solver world really changed it. It made it
it changed the game.
Yeah, it changed it mathematically completely. It made it less, like the old timers will say that they hate it, but there was a new people like the Daniel Negreanu's that started to incorporate it.
Yeah, that's Daniel.
So you can take the old timers, add the solvers with it, and make the game new for yourself and make it exciting enough and be just as successful as you were in the past without the GTO regimen in play. And those are the people that have found really continued success in this industry and have found that they can continue their name as long as you have to adjust to the changes. The dynamics of any industry continue to change. And if you don't adjust to the evolution of any industry, you're going to fall behind. And no one's going to care that you thought like that you were the OG player of the old school ways. Like nobody cares. Everyone's trying to figure out the next big thing, you know? So we have to accept what the next big thing in the world of poker is. And that is that people are getting better. They're getting stronger. It is almost being mathematically solved, although it really hasn't been. But there is a movement to try to figure that out, just like the chess world. There's a lot of similarities in both those industries for that reason.
Chess and poker are very similar to each other. It is you introduce a little element of risk in poker, and that is pretty much the difference between poker and chess. Is that you just have incomplete information, and there is a really funny similarity to like how you conduct war, and so. The saying used to go that the kind of generals, their favorite game, you used to see like paintings of general playing chess and stuff like that, because it's like conducting war is like playing chess.
Yeah.
But actually it's not. Conducting war is like playing poker, because in chess you have perfect information at all time.
Yeah.
You can see the board, you can see where the pieces are, you can see exactly what the next move is, the optimal move to make. But in poker, there is an element of you don't know what your opponent's hand is.
Right.
And in the fog of war, that is the difficulty, right? Is that you're trying to figure out what is the best move for you without knowing exactly what your opponent is going to do against your move and so on and so forth.
Right.
And so actually, the favorite game of the generals is poker, not chess.
That's a really good point. And it actually is true. You don't know what the next move is. And so I don't think that we'll ever be able to solve that. But the theories that have kind of been coming to play, so to speak, are make it so that you make it as least exploitative as possible, and more polarized. So there's a level of confusion as to why that play was made. Is it like a bluff bet, a value bet? Yes. And so those are the different nuances, and that's I think where the reads come into play. The live setting is just far more exciting for me. I had my share of being online addicted, and I am 100% going back to it, because there's nothing better than sitting in your pajamas at home, and I have fallen asleep playing poker tables online. I mean, I have. It's like I've woken up and be like, oh wow, I'm still in it.
Calm.
Yeah, like it's insane. But there's that level of like again freedom of playing online, and I will never say that I'm never going to go back to the world of online poker. I'm already back in it, to be honest. But when COVID happened, right? So everybody went back online, and then they came back into the live setting. You forgot how what an impact if you feel that you can have a read on people. And again, like I said, women are generally just better with intuition than men are. So it's hard for a lot of men to understand why I made the call that I did. And you are playing the man at the table. Yes. And if you play this individual before, you've noticed their level of style, and particularly their method of playing against you, that might be different than the way they play with others. Because all you can really even judge is how people play with you. And if you played with them a few times, you're going to adjust and possibly even change your strategy against them if you felt that they played a particular way against you.
Absolutely.
Now, I will say this in the live stream setting, and we can kind of go back into the hand a little bit too.
Yes.
In the live stream setting, there's the negative side to it, which is that you get to see exactly how these individuals played hands against you in previous live streams, because you can go back and look at those hands, and that's a positive, I think, in a way also. But another negative aspect is that the whole world sees how you play your hands, and they too also see how you play your hands. So now if you see that this person has bluffed you before, you're more likely to think that they'll do it again. Or maybe their strategy is that they'll never bluff you again because they think that that they bluffed you prior. So it's like a mixed idea. Yeah, and whatever it is, it's between you and that player. And ultimately, it's more than just playing the hand when it comes to those live settings. You're looking at all the different variances that go into play that would otherwise not be noticed in an online game, and that I think can be very difficult for online players to understand.
Yeah, absolutely. So Robbi, let's go back to the kind of the hand that to some extent changed your life, I suppose, and that really kind of shook up the poker world to some extent. What happened exactly?
Right. So
Explain.
what happened? This hand happened between two individuals. One that's particularly noticed as like recognized as the GOAT of the live stream cash poker playing world. And here I am as not only a new woman player, which is already really interesting because only, I don't know, like 4% of the world is, and I might get that statistic completely wrong, play poker in general, women in the world of poker. So this new woman coming in, high stakes, third live stream ever, and sitting at a table and going into a really crazy, big, heavy pot with this GOAT of the live stream cash poker playing world. So already interesting enough, right? Yes. And a lot of the viewers of this live stream, which is the most watched live stream in the world right now, I believe, have been watching Garrett play for a very, very long time, and maybe they've seen my previous two live streams, maybe they haven't. But I know that a lot of eyes were on us that day because we had some really heavy hitters at the table to begin with, and this was a big game. It was a 200-400 game, which is already exciting enough. Yeah.
So all eyes,
of course, huge. So it's like all the eyes are already on this game, and I've said this before, it was a perfect storm, what happened. So it's like two very polarized individuals sitting at this table that I've been in hands before. I, just made a crazy play. I made a crazy call, and it was a very interesting hand because of every single step that happened in that journey. Every single thing has been scrutinized to this point, right? And I can go back and try to explain it, and people will say I changed my story. But really, ultimately, I never had to explain that hand. I played my hand the way I wanted to play the hand. I played it against the man the way I felt that I needed to play against him. This is a man who's loved me before, and I think I even spoke to you about this over dinner, and that is that my mindset that day, whether it was right or wrong, and it might be a recreational player method of thinking, was that I'm just going to win this hand. I'm going to win this hand. I don't care how I get there. I'm going to win this hand. So I saw it, and I remember thinking for a split second, should I just fold it? Nah, I'm not going to fold it. I'm just going to win this hand. When the flop came, then I really decided I was going to win it. I didn't know. I was like, as long as he's not holding a 10, I'm going to win this hand.
Right.
And the turn really just did it for me. So ultimately, I was like, well, I'm already like almost 40,000 in. I can just drop that, or I can just keep going and take a risk. I can finish off all the rest of my chips at the table, which I think was roughly like 60,000 left. I have 140,000 behind me. Bring that back on the table if I lose a stack. So I'm losing 40 or gaining even more. And it was worth it. If it was a 5% chance of me winning that hand, I had decided that I was going in.
Yeah.
And again, that comes to the, everyone's like, oh, well, that was that wasn't your money. It doesn't ultimately. It doesn't have to do with that. I had decided I was going to win that hand, and if I was going to win it, if I was going to win that money back later, I was going to win that money back later. I do have the level of confidence to think that I can take the 140 and double it up if I lose this particular hand. Yeah. But for me, I was priced in. I was priced in at that point when the turn came. I had raised him on the turn, and when he went all in with me, I was like, I'm just calling it, and I called it. It was my hand to play. I don't have to explain how. I don't have to explain why I wanted to do that hand. It was my hand, and I wanted to play my hand the way I wanted to play my hand. And that is the beauty of poker, that you can do whatever the F you want because it's your game.
You can swear on this podcast.
It's your game.
Yeah.
You're sitting in your shoes, and these are your cards, and you're going to play them the way that you want to play them.
Absolutely, and also in the cash game setting, as you point out, as long as we can keep buying in, part of the experience of playing poker is, come on, like you want to create some entertainment, you want to have fun. It's a psychological warfare against the other player. Mm-hmm. It's funny to me that this became such a huge controversy online because in cash game especially. Like strange things happen all the time,
right?
And it used to happen that it was a live stream, and then the river fell the way it fell. You won both hands, and hallelujah to you, congratulations. Let's move on. But in this case, it's exploded into even further controversy after the hand was played. Can you talk to what happened afterwards?
Yeah. So there's so much that has come to light since that hand, and I think we already knew it was going to be a big deal. It is a live stream setting, so when we look at kind of like what the expectations were, we couldn't really determine what that would be. But at the table, it was already going to be a big deal, and it already is. It's poker is an exciting game, and it's just now we're opening up our cards to the whole world. And the players sitting at the table are both those that have deep pockets, those that play recreationally, and pros. Exciting environment. At the table, I think that his response to my hand was, I guess some would say that it was an accepted response to some degree. I think the problem that we're facing with now is what happened post hand, right? So, and that is his response to the whole thing and how he handled the situation, which I think now we can say that even the pros of the world will say that he responded very poorly, because instead of opening up the poker industry into more positive light, it's kind of shedding this negative cloud over it, let alone the fact that it's a negative cloud on my name, and I have to kind of worry about how to deal with the ramifications of this accusation against me without any basis or any evidence. But I will say that post-hand, there's a lot of things that happened that are now, coming to light. So what is it? There's a lot of news outlets that want to reach out and talk about the misogyny that comes with it. And for me, I'm really reluctant to take that narrative that they're trying to keep push on me. And that's primarily because maybe there was misogyny post-hand, and there will be many that say that there was. But for me, I'm like, what can I do with a really negative situation? This is a really negative thing that happened. How can we make it a more positive experience? And it took several weeks for me to get to that consensus. And I've said this in previous podcasts and different discussions. When the hand first happened and when I dealt with it post that day and even that night, you go through the typical emotions that any human being would. First you're sad, then you're mad, then you're angry, even more angry, then you're sad again. And you're like, and then you come to a place you're like, how am I going to live with this? It's something that's a part of me now, and I have to live with it. So what can I do with this? And instead of hiding in my little bubble, I decided to come out. I just decided to come out. I got invitations to come to some tournaments from the top directors. I got asked to be invited to some of these high, stakes private home games. Everybody wanted me to come out of my shell. I had such high level of support, and I've said this over and over again. I don't want to even call them the fans, but the support system from around the world. What really gave me peace and some level of solace in a really difficult time was just like opening up my Twitter and Instagram and just seeing like pages and pages and pages. And I still have not gone through all of them, and I apologize for those who I have not responded to, of support that I received. And there were different calibers of people that gave me that support. The women were just excited, whether they understood what poker was or not, that there was a woman that stood up to a man in a heavily male-dominated industry. And they compared it to their own experiences and whatever jobs that they had. Then I had poker players from around the world that never felt comfortable sitting at the table with these really high-profile individuals that felt like they're like, wow, that was really fucking cool that you could get in there and like stand up to these individuals who think that these amateur players can't do this to them. And then you've got the support of those that are actually pros in the world that felt really embarrassed that one of their colleagues responded the way that they did to what I think would otherwise be whale fish, whatever you want to call it, sitting at the table. You want these people at your table. So when somebody responds that unfavorably to a hand that they should have just eaten and accepted, that doesn't shed the positive light in the industry, which is that we want to grow this network of individuals. We want to invite more people to the game. And I really sat and thought about that. I'm like, in order for me to turn this negative experience into positive is to allow these individuals that are suddenly now far more interested in poker than they would have ever been because of this particular hand that has now become mainstream. So how do I do that? How do I make this feel like a more inviting sport? It's hard to do that if we discuss the conversation surrounding misogyny, because in a way, I already knew that sitting at the table that I'm going to be one of the very few women. There's already limited representation because overall representation of women in the sport is limited. Yes. So I already knew that. So I already knew what I was getting myself into. And to be honest, I think I even got more interested in the world of poker because there weren't that many women playing. Yes. Much like the industry I came from biopharmaceutical, where it is a very male-dominated industry, and there is a thrill that comes to actually rising above in an industry that is heavily male-dominated. I mean, I love the challenge of that. And so that was another exciting parameter of wanting to be successful in this world of poker. So for me, I'm like, if I can expand to that group of a network of people that would otherwise not be interested in the sport and show a little bit more positivity in a kind of toxic world of poker, why not do that and take that approach as opposed to this, wow, like what you dealt must have been misogynistic, right, Robbi? That didn't you feel that this is about women versus men? Because I don't ultimately feel that way. I already knew what I was up against. I think it's about allowing people to feel more comfortable sitting at the table and helping them recognize that this is an interesting sport, and you shouldn't be afraid to take chances. Everyone at the table took a risk. Everyone at the table is willing to take risks, and they're willing to put their whole life on the line, so to speak. And you don't have to answer to it because it's your bankroll and it's your sport. It's you are standing in your own shoes. You are your own team. You are your own coach.
Yeah.
And that's the excitement of the world of poker. And I think that we can have this as like a second movement. In the whole,
Exactly.
Yeah, like we were speaking earlier, we've got like the money maker effect, right? Of that kind of opened up the mainstream
2004,
world.
like
yeah,
WSOP,
and here we are,
excitement on TV.
And I've heard that this is kind of like that second wave. And I mean, I don't want to say that, but if that is the case, then I want people to feel comfortable playing poker, and I know that for myself, that didn't deter me from playing. It's only made me more eager and more passionate to do so.
And I think this is an interesting point, Robbi, because anyone who sits down at a poker table with experienced players can feel the intimidation of that moment. And, you play a hand a bit weird, say, you're already a bit nervous, and you play it a bit strange, and then you get scrutinized by the pros. Oh, how could you call on the turn with, jack high, whatever. And essentially, in your case, it is that intimidation times a million. Okay, and I think that for many players who sit down for the first or second time, they get intimidated, and it's difficult to come back, And in your case, I think perhaps it would be interesting for you to explain this better than me, but I would imagine that of all the outcry, of all the people reaching out to you, you probably see the best in people throughout a situation like that, and also the worst in people. And so how do you focus the energy towards the positive in a moment like that? And as you mentioned, what can be done on this like age-old problem in poker that for some strange reason that doesn't make any sense whatsoever, the experienced players consistently scare away the fish, so to say, which is like totally counterproductive to what their own goals are.
It is. It's crazy. I don't know why it's. But look, I have to see it from the two different sides, right? Like when the hand originally happened, it looks crazy. I guess if you've been in the world, not even I guess, I know that if you've been in the world of poker and you've been playing for quite some time, it's very confusing to the pros that play a certain way why that hand would be called. But it's very understandable to the amateurs and the recreational players that take those bold moves and risks all the time. So there was already going to be two different sides to that story.
And you don't want, at a live stream poker table that is streamed to the world, you don't want 9 players who are playing GTO. You want excitement at the table. That's the whole purpose. Yes,
absolutely.
You don't want people playing tight, raising 3 big blind and folding 90% of the time.
Yeah.
You want people who take risk. Those are the players who get invited back to the table.
Right. Nobody wants to see a bunch of calculators sitting in the same table.
No, definitely not. They are not. That's not the people who are get invited to this podcast. It is those who take bold decisions and who take risk and who want to do something crazy and to build something exciting.
I mean, let me tell you, Pierre, that I've gotten the approach from top names that have said like, good for you, Robbi. That was a publicity stunt, wasn't it? You did that on purpose so that you could kind of thrust yourself into this poker industry as fast as possible. Like it's some planned ordeal. And I'm like, do you think anybody ever wants to plan for themselves a cheating allegation they may never be able to disprove? So no, I mean, so back to your question about how it feels to be dealing with the negative and the positive, I guess, responses to the hand or to the experience that I'm going through right now. For me, I've done everything I possibly can when it comes to the negative response. And I know there's going to come to a point where there's nothing left to do and they're going to think what they want to think anyways. So obviously there's an investigation going on that is still ongoing, coming to a close, and I cannot wait till the results are revealed. And even then it may not be enough, let's be serious. But I've taken an independent approach as well, which is that I've taken my lie detector test, and I welcome Garrett and anybody at the table to do so. I don't know why anybody else hasn't. We've been waiting for several weeks. We've had a lot of time to kind of take our individual approach as to, clear our names, so to speak, if that is really what the intention is here. And for me, I know I didn't cheat. Nothing happened there that should be questioned further than the fact that I played the hand the way I wanted to play it, and I read the man the way I wanted to read him. And I think I've taken all the measures necessary to do that. I've taken a lie detector test. I've been very communicative. I've been thrust back into the world. I've been having these conversations with individuals who I think have a high level of influence in getting that word out. And I've been heavily active. I'm not afraid to step outside of a sport that I was growing to really love, because I know myself I did nothing wrong. And so for me, I don't know what else I can do. I mean, I've even said, I'll talk to anybody that can clear my name at this point, and I've done that. I've taken all those steps. So some individuals that were otherwise speculative of what happened, I think I have moved them back into my corner with having taken these steps and clearing my name. And I don't know, there's still going to be a small percentage that's going to believe and think what they do. But I will say that I don't look to that percentage. The number of support and the response I've received from like the 70% plus and maybe even more now, people, is just enough to get me going through the day. And it's more than enough. And like I said, I haven't even responded to all my supporters, but they keep me going. And they keep me thinking that, you know what, there's eyes on me right now. There's eyes on the sport, and I can do something positive with that. And that is that I can keep playing because that's what I want to do. I mean, I'm in Malta right now, right? It's like the online gaming capital of the world. It's a beautiful city. I've had a wonderful time sightseeing. But even sitting here in Malta and playing, I was able to go into Casino Malta last night and play with some wonderful people at the table.
Yeah,
really nice.
Casino grounds, I think. Yes.
Yeah, like it was really good time.
Fantastic.
We opened a kind of a private game there and invited some of the fans to sit at the table too that approached me while I was sitting at that casino. And we had a grand old time. And I thought for that second, I'm really tired. I'm really tired. It was like 1 a.m. And I'm like, but you know what? I suddenly just got this, I got re-energized. And I had to push everyone to leave around like 5 or 6 a.m. in the morning. Like, we've got to cut this game. Right. But I will say that's enough to tell me that poker's not over it for me. If anything, I'm getting back into the world, and I'm going to come back even harder. Hey, maybe I can't go back to my career, but this is now my new career. So whatever I need to do, I've been thrust into the spotlight, into the limelight, into the whatever light you want to call it. It wasn't my choice in the beginning, but I have no choice. And so it's what do I make of this? I've become automatically this random ambassador for a sport that I didn't really sign up to be. But if that is the approach I need to now take to make all this mainstream support that I've been receiving more interested in playing the game, I want to sit with everybody that has supported me. I want to sit with people at the table that have been reaching out to me from like Russia and Sweden and India, and I want to sit with them at the table, and I want to say, and I want them to play their first hand with me at the table, and whatever it takes to get more people interested, and whatever it takes to get the fish out. Thank you. You're welcome to all the pros for me getting these people out and playing. We want everybody at the table if we want to increase the game. We want to increase the prize pool of the tournaments. We want to increase the interest level of the game. It makes everybody more profitable, and it increases a sport that I think all the poker players love. And everybody gets to have their eyes on them. So why not turn a really negative experience into a positive one, and bring out all the people that would have never played before, and get them to sit at the table with you. But the only caveat is that we need to really ensure that we make it a comfortable environment for them and make it a fair game. You lose a hand, you lose a game, you suck it up and you deal with it, and you win the next one. And it's as simple as that.
Absolutely. The culture of poker needs to fundamentally change. And I think this situation really highlights that with some of these like really nefarious kind of actors coming after you or whatever, trying to just cause as much problems and drama as they can, kind of thing. And it's a very good example of even after the hand is played, of professional players trying to scrutinize and go against a situation like that. They should embrace what happened at the end of the day.
Well said. I do think so, because I didn't cheat. It was a crazy hand, and whatever the reason is behind why I play the hand or not, it happened. And now there's an opportunity here. There's an opportunity to increase the level of interest in a sport that they love.
Yeah. Robbi, I want to go back a bit. I mean, you are playing, essentially, you found yourself here at one of the biggest high-stake cash games in the world, obviously live streamed to the world and so and so forth. But how did you get to play in this game? Like, what's the origin story of Robbi Lew? Like, where did you come from? You mentioned the pharmaceutical industry.
Yeah.
How did you get to be able to play on at these levels?
So, yeah, I think that was a big question for many people, is how did I get thrust into the high stakes out of nowhere, right? Like, where did she come from? And I've never really discussed my past, and it kind of just, again, perfect storm of things that occurred. So I got really interested in the sport during the pandemic, and that's primarily because, at that time, as the whole world knows, the only people you could really be spending time with is your family. That was really the only one you're allowed to really spend if they lived close enough or by. And I have my identical twin sister who lives a few streets away from me. I have my brother in Los Angeles as well, and my parents were staying at a place down the street as well. And we spent a lot of time together. We had a lot of dinners together. We had to get really comfortable with each other, and it became a very taxing conversation to be talking about vaccines and COVID, and I got tired of it. And one day I just stopped. I was like, Mom, Dad, can I just teach you how to play poker, and let's do something else? And they were really excited. Yeah. So I went on Google and I printed out like the hand list, and I put little notes next to it on like bet sizing and what it meant to call, check, and see all those things. And they picked up on the game really quickly. I had my poker chips and my cards, and we played several nights like that. And it completely changed a conversation that was getting really old, which is the vaccine conversation. It kept us from having arguments and just having more fun. And sometimes we played with real money and sometimes we wouldn't, but we had a blast doing it. And it was at that time that I also opened up a podcast with one of my really good friends it was called Enter at Your Own Risk, and it was really about talking about everything other than work, everything other than COVID. It's like, how are you feeling during this really taxing time in our lives? So, that was a worldwide podcast. We had thousands and thousands of people on at a time. And in that conversation, me and him are we both love poker, and we used to go heads up with each other online all the time. He's in New York, I'm in LA. And we decided kind of like somewhere in the middle of that, when somebody asked us, why don't you guys go play at the World Series of Poker? And we're like, we should do that. We should go play as soon as it opens up. So we did go and play in 2021. I didn't have a lot of time to play there because I was still in my career, and my career is in biopharmaceuticals. I've been doing that for 15 plus years, ever since I graduated from college. And so it was really hard to balance both the two, but it really helped me realize that I love this on a competitive level. I love playing poker on a competitive level, and I told myself, when I go back to the World Series of Poker in 2022, I'm going to be better prepared, and I'm going to get a coach, and I'm going to learn how to play tournament the right way, because tournament strategy, as you know, is completely different from a cash playing strategy. So that is what I did. So I decided in April to kind of take a leave from my career, because I can always go back into it, hire the top poker coaches in the world, Faraz Chaka, Steve Blay, and just go one-on-one on learning how to play the sport. And when I did that, I went to the World Series of Poker 2022. I had several deep runs, a really good time. I also got COVID for the very first time in my life, so 2 weeks kind of went out of the water there. But it is what it is. It's the experience of live play.
For sure.
So you deal with the consequences of your actions, so to speak. And I did kind of jump into like a room full of people. What can you expect? But it was a wonderful experience, and it even energized me even that much more to continue to play the game and to practice and learn it better and better, because in the world of tournament, you never stop practicing. But in the world of cash, you can take those weird leaps and those risks. So I hadn't played cash since I started playing tournaments in 2021, a little bit here and there, a couple of the high stakes games.– I jumped back into it post World Series of Poker of 2022, and that was around like the July timeframe, July timeframe, so to speak. Played a couple of tournaments, and I was given this opportunity to play at Hustler Casino live, and the hand in question happened on my third live stream of being on Hustler Casino Live, which was only within 2 weeks, was my first time going on the live stream. So again, like crazy timing. Why did I have people are like, how did you get into high stakes? Well, I had a very, fortunate career in a very lucrative industry prior to coming to that game. And I think that garnered me the opportunity to be sitting with deep pockets and professional players. Yeah. And it's as simple as that. It really, really is. And I can't really delve into that any more than what it is. It's somebody that's able to sit at the table with these individuals who loves the sport, who wants to almost take this full time. And it was an opportunity in the making, and I think I was already getting to a place where, that was my third live stream, and I was already increasing a lot of people's level of interest in watching me from around the world. They're excited about my third time playing live stream, and then this hand happened, and it just catapulted it into a completely different direction. And here I am trying to pivot the story into a more positive note from an otherwise kind of unfortunate, like cloud that is over my poker reputation, so to speak.
Absolutely, it's like you are getting ahead of the story. I think that's always when something controversial happens, people take sides. It's always important to get ahead of the story. I think get out there, tell your side of things, like push, and that's obviously what you've chosen to do. Like you've been very strong through all of this and gotten ahead of things.
Yes, I definitely have. And it's one of those things where I'm like, I hope more people play, and I hope it doesn't keep them from playing. And I think that's my ultimate goal here. I want more women to play. I want more recreational people to play. I want more people to think that it's okay to practice and not be 100% on point and sit at the table with anyone you want to sit at the table with.
Oh, for sure.
There's something very exciting about the live world, and online gaming is increasing, and I think there's a lot of opportunity here that I want to be a part of.
Absolutely. So you mentioned earlier as well that during the pandemic, it's kind of when you committed yourself to poker to some extent. And I think you mentioned in 2021 is when you kind of stopped your career. And so do you focus full time on poker now?
So 2022 is when I actually kind of stopped my career. Yeah, that's okay.
Sorry,
yeah, all the years are being melded together.
Right.
I am now. I mean, if you think about it, I don't know what it would look like to go back to my career. That is no longer, and that is the unfortunate consequence of this allegation. I haven't tried, and I do feel like all eyes are on me based on this incident, and I can move with the world of poker, or I can go back to my very lucrative career.
Yes.
And whether that option will always be on the table, I think that remains to be seen. I think I didn't look past the fact that I love playing the sport, and I was never going to stop playing it. And that remains to be true. So as far as I can say right now is that I'm never going to stop playing poker. And if I have to be the face of those that have been compromised in the sport, I will do that. And I will do that moving forward. And I will do what I need to increase the level of interest and not keep people from playing the game. Because it's not going to keep me from playing the game. And I think that's a really important message to set out there. And if ever I want to go back to my career, maybe I'll be able to do it, maybe I won't. But this was a dark cloud that was cast on an allegation that's really detrimental to anybody in any career, right? In any industry,
right.
Without any evidence and any basis for it. So that's something I'm going to have to deal with as a result. And it's always going to be a dark cloud if you Google my name, right? There's always going to be, did it happen? Didn't it happen? And it's not something anybody wants to experience or be sitting in an interview to have to explain every time, regardless of what the truth is. So for me, this is me now, right? And I've said this over and over again, I can't change what's happened, and I can only do with what the cards were that were dealt to me, and these are the cards that were dealt to me, and so I can turn these lemons into lemonade, or I can just go hide in my corner and hope and pray for the best that it goes away, which it's not going to go away. It's not going to go away, so I'm turning a storm into sunlight, and that's really what it comes down to.
Right, and so on that note, like where do you go from here?
Right.
Now in general, Robbi, like in a way, if we see it from the positive light, this is a pretty cool opportunity to leverage essentially and to build something from. And that's clearly, again, getting ahead of the story, creating your own narrative and so on. But what do you say your ambitions are from here on, would you say?
So as you can imagine, a lot of opportunities have stemmed from this.
You must be,
it's overwhelming. It's overwhelming. And I have gone back into playing tournaments. I've felt very welcomed in that scene. So I'm going to continue doing those. I'm going to the WPT Florida and win in December as well. And so I'm going to continue playing tournaments. I will not stop the world of high stakes in private home games that I've been, flying back and forth from LA and Vegas playing. That's always exciting, and that's more private. There's no cameras on us. And I'm going to continue to stand up and speak and be okay with talking about what has occurred. But primarily, more than anything, because of these opportunities that have come to light, my team is exploring those opportunities and seeing what the best approach is here, and where I fit best in this movement, where I fit best in the industry moving forward. And there's quite a few opportunities to be exploring. As you know, I'm here in Malta. This is obviously the online gaming capital of the world. So whether it's online gaming, whether it's live, whether it's both, there's a lot of opportunities that we are exploring. And I'm going to take use of determining the best possible movement forward with all those opportunities in alignment. Yeah.
It's like being a girl heading into prom. It is the popular girl. It's the opportunities everywhere, essentially. You mentioned the home games as well. I'm really curious about this. Obviously, I've seen Molly's game. I used to be a poker player in the 2000s and the kind of private games, but on very low stakes. I want to mention that. Definitely not the high stakes. And Molly talks a lot about, there's a lot of players who try to infiltrate her games, and there was some like cheating. There were sometimes players who were cheating her games as well. When you go into a high stakes home game, like are you sometimes nervous that there are players that are colluding against you, or is that always a concern when you play home games? Can you talk a little bit more how these games are? Because you've been in them, like you've been there. We've seen it on the movies, but you've been there.
Yeah, right. Yeah. I will say the unfortunate thing with the poker industry is that even in this particular incident, it's really hard. I want to get to a place where cheating and poker is not synonymous, but it's really difficult to do when there's always going to be that stigma of cheating in this world. It's really hard to eliminate. I think we've taken a lot of security measures by allowing the private games to function in a casino setting, which has a high level of security surrounding it, and they're making those improvements every single day. I know Hustler Casino Live is working on improving their security following this so-called scandal, just to improve it. Okay. And everyone will always say that their game is safe because they want their game to be safe. Ultimately, we all want to be playing a safe game. And I think in anything that you do in life, there's going to be that opportunity of somebody colluding, somebody cheating, somebody stiffing you of your money. And I will say that in the home games that I go to, those are the risks that you take, of course. But I would not play a home game if I did not feel that there was a high level of an attempt towards making it a more secure game. And I don't think that the players that I'm sitting at the table with would be at those games if they didn't feel the same. Now, of course, is there the possibility of cheating? Probably a little bit more likely in a home game than there would be in a casino setting, which is why if you are concerned about that, you have the opportunity to play a private game in a casino setting. And even then, we can't really assure 100%. But in a home game setting, it's exciting because it's private. It's fun to be invited, and you sit with very interesting people that may not otherwise want to show their faces in a casino. And it's a risk on your own to feel whether to understand or feel comfortable sitting in a place that you feel is secure. I will say that the games I've played in, whether in Vegas or in LA, I have felt that they have taken all the necessary measures to make it a secure game. And I wouldn't be sitting at the table with that much money, and we're talking others that have millions at the table. I would not be sitting at the table with them if I felt that it was insecure. And the moment, unsecure, and the moment that it does feel that way, you just have to walk away. There's nothing you could do with any of the hands in question. I've heard some crazy stories about things that have happened in private home games where a certain person felt that they were cheated. And at that point, what can you do except just not go back? These games, Molly's game, she got into the, just to clarify, she was taking a rake. So obviously that was the illegal part of it there. But these home games are perfectly legal if there is no rake. And they're really exciting. And I hope that opportunity never goes. I continue to play in the home games because it's a different level of comfort and privacy than there would be in a casino game. But I also continue to play casino private games. I've been invited a few times to those as well. More exciting during a tournament time, because when there's a tournament going on in a casino, then if you bust out early or you have extra time, you can jump into a private, whether it's like Bobby's Room and Bellagio, which I think they changed the name now. Whatever it is, you can kind of jump into the private games at the casinos at that time. So it's just about making your own schedule and making it fit. And for me, I'm playing it all. I'm going online. I'm going on the private games in the casinos. I'm doing private home games at either in my local cities or actually flying around. I'm going to Miami for a private game as well. And I'm playing these tournaments. And I'm trying to be as many places as once. I wish my identical twin sister was interested so we could have two people around there as once, but she is uninterested. And so here I am. And I am going to be, I guess, the face that many people are used to seeing, and I'll be everywhere as often as I can be.
Absolutely. Just a side question, Robbi. What's the biggest hand you ever played? Or the most like...
The biggest hand I played as far as like the pot that I've won?
Yeah, say like a cash game.
I've won a $165,000 pot.
Yeah.
I can't think of anything bigger than that.
Jesus Christ.
Yeah, I've won a 165, but I've also lost that much.
How was your
I think I've lost an even bigger pot though. Huh? Well, here's how I feel. I feel, okay, if I lose, I think I've lost a $200,000 pot.
Yeah.
If I lose it, I'm like, cool, now I have to keep digging and get out of that. And now I have to win a pot size even bigger than that, or I have to win 2 all-ins that are 100 each. Like I sit there and I start thinking about like, how do I get out of this? And that's the thing. When you get into the world of high stakes, and I hate saying this, and I don't want to be reprimanded in any way for saying this, you have to stop looking at like real money and start looking at, like, as I put it, monopoly money. Because if you start playing scared money, you can't play the game. And for those where money doesn't matter, and there's many people at the table where but I hate saying that money doesn't matter. Money matters to everybody, but there are some that have much deeper pockets than others. They're going to play a different style against you if they think that money does matter to you a little bit. And it does matter to me. It does have value for me, unlike what some people think. It absolutely does, but I cannot play at the table with that amount of money if I don't play like it's monopoly money, because then I can't play my game. So I can't worry about the losses, and I can get excited about the wins. But as I say, if you stay at a poker table long enough, we're just redistributing our chips, right? So it's about knowing when to get up and leave. Yes. It's about knowing when to stop at that moment. Sometimes you just need a mental break if you've just taken bad beat after bad beat. And some days are just bad days, and some days are just great days where you're like, I can't believe I'm winning these hands. I can't believe my bluffs are going through. And that's the excitement of the game, is that if you're not okay with the polarity of the experience that you can have at the table, which is that it'll be a really bad day, shitty hands, everyone's calling your bluffs, with the fact that everyone isn't calling your bluffs, you're getting away with playing trash hands, you're getting the highest value out of playing the best hands. If you're okay with wanting that side of it, you have to be okay with the end of the spectrum, which is that you're going to have a really bad day and you might be down significant amounts of money. And the only way to get out is to dig deeper and find oil and water, like I said, so you can get back to the other spectrum and get that thrill and excitement.
I love that book, by the way.
Yeah, it's I play for that part of the spectrum that I think is incomparable to any feeling in the world.
Yeah, we're going to start rounding off here a little bit. There is something I want to dig in deeper to as well. You've studied philosophy back in the day in college, I believe, and something that's interesting to me as well, coming from the poker world and just being in the gambling world my whole life, is just what is the kind of the essence here? Like what creates this love and drive to play poker for 12 hours at a time, and just as you mentioned before, you get this energy boost the moment you sit down at the table.
Yeah.
What is that? Can you break it down for me, please?
Those that play for a long time can completely relate, and it's so hard to explain. I think ultimately there's a lot of factors that go into play here. There's that level of independence that you get coming from the world of corporate. You're already answering to somebody. It starts from like the shareholders to the CEOs and all the leaders sitting at the table, to the board of directors, and then trickling its way down. And you're always answering to somebody, right? You're always on a schedule. There is a level of like autonomy that you have and self-governance, so to speak, in the world of poker that's just exciting. You get to make your own schedule. You get to sleep, eat, drink whenever you want. You get to pick the tournaments that you go to. In the world of sports, you're usually part of a team, and you have this huge management team around you that tells you what you need to do and where to go. And there's a schedule for what your next games are. But in the world of poker, it's just you, yourself, and you, and it's up to you what games you want to play, what tournaments you want to play, and if you don't want to play, you don't have to play, and if you want to play cash, you can play cash. And that level of like freedom is thrilling. So that's one thing. The other thing is it is a zero-sum game, so that can be exciting, and it can also be a little demotivating to others, because when you win, you hope that everyone's really excited for you. And I think that's where the staking comes in, where you're selling action to get more people excited about your win. And I think that could be a really big movement towards continuing that process, so other people can be excited for your success with you, and you can have a bigger support system. But it's still that level of freedom where you get to sit down and you just don't know what's going to happen, right? I mean, you don't know if you're going to have a deep run in this tournament or if you're going to bust out the first day. You don't know if you're going to walk away with like 3x amount of money that you sat down with at a cash table, or if you're going to walk away with like, under $300,000, whatever it is. That thrill and that level of like uncertainty is, I think, exciting for those that have a big passion for the game. And for those that like to take risks in life, if you're like an adrenaline junkie, which we know there are many of, become a poker player. I mean, there's nothing more like, there's no adrenaline rush like the rush you get when you win it all or you lose it all. And I've said this oftentimes. I like it when somebody gets me with a bad beat. I like it when I lose to a cooler. I like it when my pocket kings go against pocket aces. For me, I'm like, I like it when it hurts. And if you like it when it hurts, this is a sport for you.
That is the sport for you. And speaking about the adrenaline junkie, it's kind of like the only adrenaline junkie activity where you don't sacrifice the potential risk of your own health.
Yes.
Right?
Yes.
You're sacrificing the potential
You're
to
not
risk
getting
money.
hurt at the table.
Yes, exactly.
Yeah, you're not getting hurt at the table. You're, that's true. You can have kids because their dad's going to come home in one piece.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
It's the perfect sport to keep yourself in one piece. Robbi, it's been fantastic to have had the opportunity to have you here. I'm really thankful for you to give my time here today. But I have a last question for you. What's your favorite poker hand?
What's my favorite poker hand? This is such an easy one. Jack 10 suited.
Oh, I thought you were going to say Jack 4.
No way. Okay, so we got one card right.
All right, okay.
Well, maybe I will continue to play the Robbi until the end of time just to entertain those that are at the table. So I told you last night we played the Jack 4 game, and it was the first hand I was dealt. I looked at the dealer, I was like, is this a setup? I got Jack 4 off the first hand, and I won it.
That's hilarious.
And I think quite a few people at the table won the Jack 4 off last night. So I'll continue to play that for sheer entertainment for those that want me to. But Jack 10 suited is my favorite hand.
All right. Okay, I'll give it that to you. Thank you so much, Robbi, for your time today, and I'm really thankful for you being here.
Thank you, Pierre. This is really nice. Appreciate you.
Thank you.